What is your impression on Protestants? I personally think it cannot be so good since there has been so many incidents like disrupting preaching at the Seoul station, controversies around groups like Shincheonji. In some way, Protestants were in the middle of it. However, you might not realize how deep the Protestant influence has permeated through almost every perspective of your life. Today, we will talk about the most deepest and some of the most important perspective of Protestant influence, education.
You'll probably be familiar with this term. As you know, Sa stands for the scholars who are the ones who deal with literature. Nong stands for farmers who deal with agriculture. Gong for artisans specialized as craftsmanship. And Sang for merchants who facilitates with the exchange of goods and commodities. For scholars, Chosun was truly the ideal environment for studying. From a young age, they received full support to master various fields of learning, mostly Confucianism, and even as adults, they were able to make a living out of it. And for the rest, not exactly. All sons and daughters of farmers, artisans, merchants began to learn their daddy's jobs when they were very young. Thus, it is correct to say that those kids did not have any time to spend their time on luxuries such as studying. Let's take a look at this part of Gyeonggukdaejeon, which you may think as a constitution of Chosun. Gyeonggukdaejeon states that Hangul, the local school of Chosun, must accept students based on their family's social status, which simply means they will just accept the upper-class students. Also, Gyeonggukdaejeon states that Kwago, which is the test to get a job at the government, which is basically the only way to make a living out of studying, was restricted to commons, which means no women or slaves. It was the time of imperialism in the West. America, Britain, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, most of the European American countries were busy establishing colonies in the entire world. In their eyes, there were two types of countries in the world: the ones whom they considered barbaric, and the ones with respectful, distinct civilization and culture. Their colonizing strategy towards the countries in the first type were simple. They just overran the entire civilization with absolute power. However, colonizing countries of the second type wasn't that simple. Considerable damage could be expected if they truly put forth their full effort. And there were those who, under the guise of international morality, were eagerly seeking opportunities to seize colonies for themselves. In that sense, they chose the method of pretending to help their development while slowly taking away their sovereignty. In this process, knowing that the true strength of a nation comes from its people rather than its government, they chose missionaries as the first representatives to get closer to the people of that country. Missionaries, most of them not knowing the real intention of their nations, went to eastern countries, including Chosun, to spread their religion. Here's what they experienced when they arrived. All right, 1 month and 2 weeks. We have finally arrived to Chosun. Now we can truly spread our religion and spread God's word. That's right. They witnessed the Chosun government brutally slaughtering their predecessors, the Catholics. That's why they figured that jumping straight into mission work would be a total disaster. In that sense, they decided to gain Chosun's trust first in two ways. The first way was through medical aid. The Protestants created a lot of hospitals in the Chosun land, and they also conveyed a lot of medical knowledge. And the second part is unlike Catholic priests, the Protestant missionaries had their own jobs. There were teachers, scientists, doctors, all types of people among them. This means that they were able to convey their expert knowledge to Korean students. This is Henry G. Appenzeller. In 1885, with the permission of the emperor, he established the first public school, which is referred to as the Hakdang, the Peje Hakdang. This is followed by Iwa Hakdang, established in 1886. Let's recall the policies of Hangul and Sorong in previous times. Unlike Sorong or Hangul, who are open only to high-class children, Hakdang was open to every single person, even including women and slaves. Also, similar to modern schools, Hakdang had their curriculum divided into elementary, high, college classes.
You must notice that this is the very beginning of modern Korean education. Everything you can imagine about modern Korean curriculum, it all began from here. In fact, a lot of schools in South Korea has their root down to Hakdang in those days. For example, the Underwood's Hakdang established by Horace Grant Underwood in 1886 is the root of Yonsei University nowadays, and the Sungshil Hakdang established in 1897 is the root of current Sungshil University. High schools like Peje High School and Pei All-Girls High School also have their roots down to these Hakdangs.
Anyway, they began their education with English at first and slowly extended into math, science, and eventually they began to try Bible study. Now it's finally time. Let's begin our proper mission as Protestants. But sure, they're not so good at English. It will take decades to teach them. Well, we can use Chinese characters. The emperor knew how to use them, right? Well, that's only restricted to high class, but I guess that's our only out. I've got an idea. How about we use... You might have thought, is this guy dumb? King Sejong has made an entire written language for us about 400 years ago. Well, the situation of Chosun was not as optimal as you thought. Since Hanja was so dominant among the scholars, Huminjeongeum was quite repressed. There were very few books or printouts written in Huminjeongeum which restricted the use of the language. And also, as I mentioned before, most of the commoners did not have any time to study. However, through Protestants, the popularity of Huminjeongeum arose again. Established by John Ross's Luke's Gospels, Protestant missionaries competitively began to print out biblical resources in Huminjeongeum. They also printed out textbooks for learning Huminjeongeum such as Korean Primer by John Ross. You might have noticed that the consequences of the missionaries and actions of Protestants created one single great flow, the flow of Christian values permeating through children's education. You might say, we don't learn any Christian values in school. What do you mean? Let's take a look at this part of our elementary school textbook. Now, let's have a look at this part of the Bible. Now, let's take a look at this part of our textbooks again. Now, let's take a look at this part of the Bible. Finally, let's take a look at this part of our textbook. Now, let's take a look at this part of the Bible. You see, Christian values that were taught in Protestant hakdangs, such as love, equality, and forgiveness, which was hard to find in Confucian and philosophy of Chosun, has permeated through almost every single perspective of children education. This influence remains even in modern days, although they might have not been directly mentioned as Jesus' words. Let me quickly summarize what I've said today. Protestant missionaries, by establishing Hakdang, laid the foundation of Korean modern education system. Through this, they introduced equal rights to be educated for every single person, and significantly contributed to the population of Huminjeongeum. And most importantly, they infused Christian values into the cultural fabric of what we grow up learning. Their influence goes way beyond what I've mentioned today. Protestant missionaries have influenced so many aspects of Korean education. For example, music, sports, art,
and it got broken and only one piece on this shape.
There's nothing among these that has not been influenced by Protestantism. It all began from these hakdangs. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to persuade you into believing in Christianity or something. However, you must realize that almost every perspective of your learning in school has begun in this place,